I'm Adam from Springhill Beef. We're first generation farmers. We purchased our first farm, Springhill, in 2016, and we now operate a vertically integrated paddock-to-plate business. Jody?
I'm Jody from Springhill Beef. I'm a mum of three, first and foremost, but we are first generation farmers purchasing our first property in 2016. We come from no farming background, so it was a big step for us to follow our passion.
Yeah, and we had an off-farm business that was completely different than a farming industry. So we come from the automotive industry. We used to repair hail damage vehicles for insurance companies and automotive dealerships. So yeah, farming was a hell of a lot different to us and very new, but something that the more we dabbled in it, the more we enjoyed it. So it was something that we wanted to dive into and explore a little bit more. We started out, we leased and adjusted some cattle around the place and slowly build up a bit of a herd. And just the more we did that, the more we enjoyed it. So the more we wanted to lean into that.
We love the lifestyle of farming and creating something from the land that we could share with our children, for us to let our children grow up with that lifestyle.
Yeah, being on the land, riding motorbikes and horses and having the dogs and the cows. The kids always loved it, didn't they? Rolling around in the mud when they were younger. It was just a good way to bring up the kids. So that sort of appealed to us a lot about agriculture as well.
Coming from a very toxic industry, I would say Adam worked in. He did all the repairs and I did all the office admin and customer relations. It wasn't healthy, it wasn't sustainable, and also we wanted to show the kids what's possible with following your dreams and passions, and farming was that for us.
Yeah, and I think like that toxic industry, we'll dive into that a little bit later in a little bit more detail, but I think that was the thing that gave us the push to be able to we're just going to make this happen. Really wanted to make something for ourselves in an industry that we loved and build a team that had good culture. So I think as much as that was hard to go through at the time, it was also what gave us that push to just dig deep and make it happen.
Something we don't share a whole heap of what we've been through, but in that period before we got into farming and purchasing Springhill, Adam was extremely sick and we didn't know what it was. He thought he was dying. It was really bad at the time. I remember picking him up and he couldn't even sit up straight. He was so sick, and it all come down to stress. It was simply stress related from that industry and what we were going through at the time. And having that, it was it's just not what we wanted. We didn't want the kids to grow up watching that. We wanted to really, show what was possible and to follow our dreams.
Yeah, I think that really drove home too, that sickness. It scared us. Was this it sort of thing? If this is where it ends sort of thing, if I'm that crook, then I'd be pretty bloody pissed off if we never sort of followed our passion or followed our dream or instilled some good values in the kids. I think that's another big part of what gave us that push to actually really dig deep and do something.
And with having dabbled in the adjustment and leasing and knowing that that's sort of we really enjoyed that, that's when we started the process of looking, and we looked for probably 2 years for properties everywhere, and we'd pretty well given up on finding something. And it was just one day I jumped on realestate.com and here come a property. It was out of our budget, but we still went and looked, and from the minute I drove on that property, I knew that was it.
Yeah, I still remember when we drove down the river there. We drove in the gateway and you're like, oh, I love this place. And then we drove down to the river there, and the river's crystal clear and there's platypus in the river and bass there, and you just went, this is it. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah. Not sure how it was meant to work, but we went back to our bank and it was, this is it. We want it. Let's do it. So Springhill was a bare block. It was originally only purchased to be a grazing block. We weren't meant to live there, but we fell in love with it. So we sold where we were.
We remember we stayed that weekend. It was like one of the first weekends, and we camped out there, remember?
Yeah.
And we were sitting around the fire cooking steaks over the fire, and we're just like, we don't want to go home tomorrow. Like,
This is it.
Like, I don't want to stay here. So then we're like, sell home. We're done.
But in doing that meant we moved into a shed. So we moved into a caravan in a shed, and that's where we began the process of then building. So Springhill was 300 acres, pretty well 3 paddocks, no infrastructure.
Yeah, old set of timber yards that were falling down. Remember, you used to try and close the gate, and the latches wouldn't close because the posts had fallen over, and yeah, it was a bit of a shit show. And then when we moved into the shed, like, we literally moved all our furniture in the shed, and we were very lucky that that shed was there because it gave us a place to move, and it had a bathroom off the front of it there. So, like, we had the necessities, I suppose, but yeah, I still remember that time. It was like a Sunday or something like that when I was working away, and you rang me first thing in the morning, and you were like all worked up, and you're like, there's water just flowing through the shed. And I was like, it can't be, like, how much? And you're like, oh, there's like 4 inches or something. I was like, is the tank exploded? Like, what's happened? Where's all this water come from? But it was just that heavy downpour that come straight through the shed where all our furniture was. And yeah, you're standing ankle deep in water with everything we owned basically in the shed.
And at that time, Adam was working away. So I was 5 months pregnant, 2 kids. And I will admit I did chuck a hissy fit that day. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So we were very, very lucky that a lovely lady up the road had a cottage fully furnished, and we moved straight into that until the house was finished.
Yeah, like the next week,
Yeah.
straight into it. Yeah, we were pretty lucky there. And you were pregnant too, so it made it a little bit more comfortable.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I guess that probably covers off that first initial step, doesn't it? Like, from
well, how we come about purchasing Springhill,
Yeah.
why we purchased Springhill.
yeah. And I think the why in that too, like you said before about how, we were leasing and adjusting, and then we wanted to buy our own place, and that was like, we had cattle spread, over probably a 3-hour distance, didn't we? Like, we'd have 20 here and 70 there and 15 over here. Like, we just had them everywhere. And home back then, we had like a little set of yards built there with some holding paddocks that we could use as a bit of a depot to move cattle around. But we worked with some pretty rough setups too. Like, quite often when you lease properties, they're not set up to what you'd probably should have them set up to. Like, you remember that set of yards that up the coast there? Like, it was at the top of a hill. The cattle never wanted to run to the top of a hill, and
We had 2 young kids that Sky at the time had separation issues, so she was literally at my hip while we were running the hills trying to bring cattle in.
yeah, that was that time when we got there and my bike wouldn't start, so we couldn't muster him. But the truck was booked, so they had to come. And I remember you tried to cancel the truck, and he's like, the truck's already halfway there. It's coming. So then we're running around the paddock trying to get these cattle to come up to the top of the hill to get into the yards. And even when you got them in the yards, which we finally did, you'd still like hold your breath because they could break out of the yards. They just weren't that great a set of yards. They could have easily just pushed through the sides of the panels and out they went and start from scratch again.
And the funniest thing about that whole day is Adam and I running up the hills, screaming, getting these cattle in. And at the end of the day, we looked back across, and the family that owned the property, they were all sitting there watching us. Like, they got a good show that day.
I think the kids have still got a bit of PTSD from that day, actually. But yeah, so like a big driver of that was we wanted to have our own place where we could make our own decisions on fencing and pastures and that sort of stuff, and then also develop the infrastructure to the point where if we got the cattle in the yards, we could breathe comfortably then that they're in the yards while we do our work and we get them out, sort of thing. Because that was a big thing. Hey, like,
well, Adam would have, like, he would be so nervous for days leading into doing cattle work because you just wouldn't know how it would go. Like, and we were starting off, like, we were doing it all on our own. So it was it was a nerve-wracking time because, for one, it wasn't our infrastructure, so we couldn't really change too much about it. And then you could get the cattle in the yards and then they'd run through them. So it was always nerve-wracking. And at the end of the day, it was always a success and we got it done. But it was a lot of work leading into it.
That place which was close to home, remember? And the yards were made up just of wire. Like, they were literally just wire close together. So as soon as you start putting pressure on the cattle and trying to get them to go up the race, they'd just stick their head through the wire and you'd lose half a dozen and have to go and chase them again. And then there was no crush in that either. Like, remember that? You'd get them up the race and you'd sort of
bit of timber that would hold them.
Yeah, you just block them in there and try and do the work on that. So, yeah, we're learning how to handle cattle and then we're doing it in, some pretty wild setups, I suppose, which made it all that bit more interesting.
It was always fun. You'd come in, it was in the hills, so you'd drive up and then the cattle would see you and they would run. So you knew from the beginning you're in for a good day because, that's how it started.
And the next door neighbour used to muster with a helicopter.
Yeah.
So, the cattle were always stirry there.
So, going on to properties, that when we bought Springhill, we knew then we needed good yards because that helped with our nerves to know that the cattle were in the yards and they stayed in the yards. So that was one of the first things we did at Springhill was rip down the yards and put up a steel set of yards.
Yeah, with a good crush.
And laneway systems is something that we put in place so we knew we could get the cows to the yards.
From any paddock quite easily. Yeah.
So it gave us a good base and definitely good learning leasing properties of what they had, what we needed.
What worked well, what didn't work well, what would change. So, it really gave us that knowledge to be able to, I guess, start developing Springhill once we got it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that pretty much takes us from purchasing Springhill and sort of the very early days. And, I guess next one we'll dive in a little bit deeper to a bit more of the journey.
From the next potty again?
From the next one?
Yeah. What's the next one?
So next episode we will dive into the early days and the challenges that we had. Hopefully be able to help others with their journey in farming and show that it's not always easy, but it's definitely achievable.
There's always a solution. So hopefully we can help you guys find these solutions and show some of the behind the scenes of challenges and adversities that we've had to overcome. Righto, guys. We get lots of DMs quite regularly asking us all sorts of questions. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to try and answer some of these questions at the end of each podcast episode. So if you've got any questions, just DM us and we'll try and get through all those. To kick it off, we've got one here that come through recently asking us about our fencing setups and why we've chosen steel fencing over timber, which is quite common in our areas.
So for us, we've found that steel fencing's much easier.
We've got all the equipment, basically, for us. Instead of having to get a contractor in, we've got strainer drivers, like petrol strainer drivers. We've got petrol post drivers. Obviously, you can throw them up pretty quickly. The end assemblies, we buy them in a kit. So we buy 100mm strainers with a stay kit. Just comes in a box. You get 5 in each. So bolt them all together. We're never really good with timber. Even at school, I was terrible at timber. Nothing ever lined up properly. So I've always been a much bigger fan of steel. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? When we first moved there, we didn't really know how to do the timber fencing. And anyway, we'd done a bit of it, but we did it all by hand. So it was quite laborious. And then once we got the gear to do the steel stuff, it was quite quick and easy.
Well, in the early days, we would dig the holes and concrete the strainer posts in. Now we have a driver that does that, so we don't need to concrete the posts in anymore. It was very easy for us to do, so the labour cost of getting a contractor in to do the fencing was eliminated there. It was something Adam and I could do ourselves.
It's quite flexible too. We've had times where we've put up a fence in the early days, and then now we've gone, maybe that needs to move a little bit, or that needs to be over here a bit, and it's quite easy just to drop the wires, pull the posts out, move it a bit, and set it back up. So, whereas with timber posts, even just pulling the posts out would be a big job, and then driving them back in and stuff.
Yeah, so for us, the steel fencing definitely easier. It was easier. It's cheaper. You didn't have to wait for a contractor. We could do it ourselves.
And then we use a lot of electric fence now too. So like a lot of our fences, we went two-strand hot wires, which was even more quick and effective. You could space your posts out even further and get a fence up pretty quickly. And then fairly recently, we've dropped back just to single wire, haven't we? Like sort of waist height, single wire. The cattle listen to that pretty well once they're trained to the fence. We don't have any dramas with them. And then further from that is the virtual fencing that we've signed up for. So that'll eliminate the need for internal fencing completely. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, hope that helped someone. And we'll see you on the next podcast.
Good job, guys.